Can't say I remember no Atten. Guys, welcome to Project Geekology episode 106. I am one of your hosts, Dakota, and I'm joined as always with...
I am Anthony, and don't confuse me with Neel, the elephant child.
I don't think anyone's going to, or anything. Yeah, I don't think anyone was going to confuse you with Neel. But we are also joined with our new regular guest host, I guess. I'm not really sure what you are these days. Rich, welcome.
I feel the same way. That's my name is Rich Shanana. All right, nobody really knows who I am, but I am glad to be here with you guys, and I'm glad that it's not a skeleton crew.
Yeah,
I mean, technically, how many people does it take to like build a skeleton crew, or like to just be a skeleton crew of something? It's just the bare bones, right? It's just the bare minimum needed to like get a ship running, right?
So I guess for a podcast, it would be you guys have. There's been mini episodes, so I guess one.
Okay,
is the skeleton crew.
The skeleton crew? Okay, I gotcha.
So we're running at full capacity plus one.
Right.
100%. Yeah, okay. We have the dinghy on the side of the boat and everything.
All right. I like this, naval lingo that we have going on, because I actually did recently watch the first Pirates film, Curse of the Black Pearl, and I just love that movie so much.
Yeah, we covered that also.
It's been a bit.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Those movies are glorious. Yo ho ho and a bottle of rum. I love everything. And I did share this with Jen. I guess before Disney like outlawed this or whatever, I went to Disneyland and I bought the tricorder hat.
Okay.
Right, with like the random like wisps of like hair on it, and it had like the braids with like the little. So it was like full Jack Sparrow, right? And I happened to kind of have the similar facial hair, so I remember being at Disneyland and a number of people, and I didn't do this on purpose, stopped me and they're like, "That guy looks like like let's take a picture." And I was like, I don't look like Johnny Depp at all.
Yeah.
Right. But boy, did I have a good time. It was kind of hilarious. So
that's awesome. But guys, we are talking about Skeleton Crew, specifically the first 4 episodes of the limited 8-episode run Disney Plus series. It's a Star Wars television show. If you haven't checked it out, at least not the first 4 episodes, please do so before listening to us here for our 107th episode. And yeah, we're going to be getting into both non-spoilers and spoiler discussions for those first 4 episodes, what we thought about, or what we currently think about the character progressions of all the individual characters, the introduction of Jad Nahil. I forget what his name is. He has so many names. But yeah, before we jump into any of that, I guess I'll jump in first because I already kind of jumped into what I've been up to this past week. But I also actually did visit Disney World briefly over the weekend because my wife Jen ran the Disney World Marathon. She didn't do the dopey challenge or the goofy challenge, but she did run the full 26.2 miles that, take up the actual marathon run. So for those of you who don't know, Disney has race weekends where it'll be like the first day is a 5K run, second day is a 10K run, third day is a half marathon, and the fourth day is the full marathon. People who do multiple races can, basically, it's a feat of strength, basically. And for those of you who do like just the half marathon and the full marathon, that's called the Goofy Challenge. And then those who do all 4 days of racing, which is just insanity, it's called the Dopey Challenge. But you get a really cool medal for each of those races that you do. And, some people were out rocking all 6 medals for each of the 4 races, plus the 2 challenges. So yeah, people are crazy, but I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's wild. That's absolutely wild.
Jen was fully decked out in a Kermit costume, which she was extremely excited about. She has been planning this for months. And then after the race, she basically was just wearing a bunch of Kermit merch that she has collected over the years. Kermit Crocs, Kermit backpack, Kermit sweatshirt. She brought her Kermit like plush toy, and she made a Kermit hat for the run itself. So she was fully Kermited out.
I told Jen that you needed to deck out in Kermit also.
Should I go Kermit or like Miss Piggy?
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Hey, buddy, it's 2025. Let's go.
Let's do this. But no, I did have a really fun time in Disney World for the short time that I was there. What's cool is that in the race they actually run through all 4 of the Disney parks, and if you're doing good on time, you can actually stop and ride some of the rides. Like some people were stopping to ride Everest and all that.
Oh,
so
awesome.
I think that's and it's free with the price of admission of like the not the theme park price of admission, but the actual ticket to run the marathon. You can pretty much do whatever rides are open at that time. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Nice.
But yeah, she had a good time. She finished it. She ran the whole thing. Unfortunately, when we were there, and I think this is why we ended up watching Pirates of the Caribbean, the Pirates of the Caribbean ride was down in the day, like during the day that we visited Magic Kingdom. So it's like a must do for me whenever I'm there, that's kind of like the first thing I go to and probably the last thing I do before I leave that park. So seeing that it was just completely just off all day was just, it killed me. It's also like really cold for Orlando that weekend, but
yeah, it's been kind of cooling down here in South Florida. Like over the past like few weeks, there's some days where it'll kind of pop up to like maybe 80, but then we'll have a couple days where it dips down to, I think like the coldest was maybe like in the 40s, but usually it's like in the 50s, 60s. I think right now it's like in the 60s. So it's definitely been a nice change from it's usually like hot most of the time. We don't usually get a bunch of weeks where it like cools down. Like we'll get like a week where it'll cool down to like, maybe 40 or 50. And then after that, we're back up to like maybe 70, 80.
Nice. Florida in like the 70, 80 range is just so nice. Anything past that point, oof.
Right. And then
but,
the inclusion.
In either direction, just because Florida cold is really cold.
It's like a wet cold.
Yeah, because it's so humid. It's like a bone chilling cold that you experience in Florida, even though technically it's not as cold as some of the northern states. Like we were coming down from New York, which has been 20 for like 3 weeks in a row.
Oof.
But for some reason, just being outside in like maybe 40 or 50 degree weather in Orlando, it felt the same. It was just like but anyway, so that's what I've been up to. Had a fun time.
Nice.
But back on that grind. Anthony, what have you been up to?
I have been up to mostly watching these first 4 episodes of Skeleton Crew again. And I know it came out, I don't remember when I think it came out last month, but I finally got to the 2nd season of Squid Game. I don't know if you watched that. I don't know if you watched any of it at all, but it's definitely, I'm pretty sure that if you haven't seen Squid Game, you've heard of it. And
yeah, I have heard of it. Obviously, I actually am one of the few people who have yet to watch it.
I mean, it's
I join you.
It's definitely interesting. It's crazy how it grabbed a lot of people because I mean it's a Korean show, not many. There's actually a lot of like Korean shows that are like very similar that don't make it around. That doesn't make the international circuit the way that this one does. And so like there's one that I was watching that it was like a zombie apocalypse breaking out at like a school. The Koreans are very similar to the Japanese in like their, I guess their imagination, their creativity,
I noticed they are much better at like the live action dramas than the Japanese. Well, where the Japanese are much better at the animated dramas.
Yeah.
But they, like you said, they have similar creative, I guess, outlets and styles. So
Yes.
yeah, I think that's cool.
Yeah, so I'd been watching
How is the second season?
It's I mean I've been enjoying it so far. I haven't finished it yet. It's interesting like to see how like what the dynamic would have been, because it centers around the winner of the first one, the first season. So it's interesting seeing like, okay, how are they going to bring it back? Like, why would he be going back into the games, you know? And so like them figuring it out and kind of implementing that and bringing the games back. It's I mean, I've been enjoying it so far. It's
cool.
You know, I mean, I guess like as somebody who really enjoys watching, you know, anime, this is almost like something that you would see in live action. I think like one that kind of reminded me of that, there's an anime that they did like a live action adaptation of it. It's called Alice in Borderland, and it's kind of like, you know, games, you know, these people getting transported to like a game that like you get killed. If you get killed in this game, you're dead, you know, like your body is in the game, and if you know, you get killed in this world, kind of. So not like Sword Art Online, where when you get killed in the game, it's your brain getting, you know, that disconnect.
I see. Cool, man.
Yeah, man.
Rich, throwing it over to you. What have you been up to?
We finally wrapped up. It was a very difficult week of having to watch Revenge of the Sith 4 times a day and stop it and wax poetic about things that I liked or disliked. But I got through it. It was difficult.
You locked in.
For those just catching this episode, Rich is a teacher, and he is using Revenge of the Sith to ease kids into Macbeth.
Yeah, so we just started Macbeth. So I got to it's the only day of the year that I get to use my face as a lesson plan, because the line is, he unseams him from the nave to the chops. And then I get to point to my mutton chops and go, guys, what are these called? And they're like, oh. And then I'm like, yeah, oh. So it's
very nice.
It's really enjoyable. It's I can never change my facial hair because then I'll have to change my lesson plan. That would be unfortunate.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's a good, you know, if your wife ever complains, I do it for the kids.
If my wife ever complains.
If your wife ever complains.
But other than that, just, you know, trying to finish out Dragon Age. I think I just, before we started recording, I actually saw that the one of the missions on my menu is, it says if you start this mission, you're ending the main story.
Oh, so, okay, interesting.
So next time we talk, I will hopefully be done with this.
Now, are you the kind of guy that will try to do all of the other side quests in the interim, or can you like complete the side quests after you complete the main storyline?
So I've done everything that I can, every single side quest now, because I haven't looked it up yet. But if I feel like I remember the last Dragon Age game being like you win and then it's over. It's more like a Zelda than it is a like a Red Dead.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, that's a smart idea. Cool. Very nice.
I want to get 100%. You know, get that platinum, that meaningless platinum trophy on my PlayStation 5 account, which means so much.
I did that with the Spider-Man game.
Oh yeah. No, I expected my son, like when I came by and he didn't have the platinum yet, I was like, are we even trying right now? Like what's happening? So
Lovely.
he got it too.
That's wonderful peer pressure. And actually, we're going to be talking a lot about peer pressure today. As we jump into our topic of discussion, Skeleton Crew, we have a bunch of young kids who, you know, they're just doing their kid thing. One of them is, has a lot of wanderlust. He's always having adventures in his head about being a Jedi and going on crazy adventures. Another one is just happy to be in school and happy to be a child and happy to be on the path that he's on. He's got a crush. He's just living life. Then we have another one who is on a path to success, I would say. But she decides that she would rather go for like being the cool kid and so on. And then the last kid, I'm purposely not saying their names. I don't know why I'm not saying their names, but I'm going to keep doing this. The last of the 4 children has a cybernetic implant that helps her stay alive and is honestly pretty cool. So yeah, those 4 kids are Whim, Neel, Fern, and KB. Before we begin, what are your thoughts on, I guess, the introduction of these characters and where they go? Let's talk about Whim first, because he is, at least at the outset of the show, the main character that we're following. Rich, how do you feel about Whim as a character from where we are in, when we first meet him to, where we are at the end of these 4 episodes?
Well, I think, for me, he's obviously supposed to be kind of like Lukey in terms of that, he's the one who wants to leave the planet.
Right.
He has like these dreams of joining. I mean, obviously Luke's ideas were more well-grounded because there was an act like he could actually join the war. He could join the New Republic.
Right. And he understands what's beyond his little rock.
Yeah, where, Whim is by himself. But I think it's weird. Out of the 4 of them, I almost feel like he grows almost the least, but maybe it's because he has the most to do. You immediately feel terrible for him because his dad, very early on, I do believe it's the first episode.
Yes.
It's definitely within the first 4, kind of says, like, isn't it time for you to stop? Or he asks for him to read a bedtime. And he says, can you read me a story before bed like mom used to? Right? So he's even like saying out loud, like, mom, my mom, who's dead dad, could, she used to do this. I'm obviously not feeling well. Would you please do this thing that my dead parent used to do? And he's like, I got too many reports. I can't do it.
Gotta go to work.
Can't do it.
Gotta go to work.
And so you're immediately, I don't know if I thought it was heavy-handed, but it was just so quick that, you're like, oh, like neglected, poor neglected kid, like his dad's a workaholic, buried himself in work after his wife died.
Yeah.
But he is definitely the more childish of the group. And it just, I kind of struggle to place his age. I just had a conversation with my son who he got, doesn't listen to this, so thank God, but he had a little bit of a meltdown one day, just theoretically. The idea that he has all these toys, but now that he's 10, he's not sure. He doesn't want to be the kid who's still playing with toys. So he's kind of he had to like feel it out at school, and I think Whim is somewhere in that age because it seems like his dad is doesn't approve of it anymore, and his friends don't seem to engage in that same behavior. So he's definitely been off in this fantasy world for a long time. I like him. He's got some spunk, he has some nice moments, but I think in some ways he's the character that grew the least for me.
So I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but the way that I interpret where they are in life, or at least in the education system, it seems to me that they're going from elementary into a middle school setting. They're doing like this final test that kind of will set them up for success or failure depending on where they place. And that's kind of like the introductory setup that we have with their schooling and everything on Nadatin. And the way that the kids are all portrayed, specifically Whim and Neel, it feels as though they're still in that elementary school mindset or like early middle school mindset,
Wait, where did you say they are?
Can't say I remember no.
Oh, you took it away from me, man.
I know. I saw the layup in your eyes.
And then you destroyed it.
Limb from limb. Let's see. Yeah, so I would say they're like middle school age ish. As far as like,
yes, I would. They're at that coming of age, which is usually that age. The middle school, still trying to figure yourself out. That age.
And I think that's kind of why the dad is like, all right, come on, buddy, you gotta, start growing up a little bit. I think they really play the dad off as being really neglectful and stuff. And yeah, he is outwardly neglectful, at least in this one episode. But I think to a degree he has maybe some point when it comes to Wim, because Wim is like just so over the top in his own head. Like he is letting this get in the way of his schooling. It's getting in the way of him getting to class on time. It's actually a real problem. And maybe that's because his mother died early on or something. But yeah, it's interesting. And I do feel bad for not only Wim, but for the father ultimately, because, as the show goes on, you see that he does truly care for his son.
Right. Especially like when they leave.
Oh yeah, you can see he's heartbroken. But yeah, Anthony, what do you feel about like Wim's character and how he grows over these 4 episodes, if at all? Like, do you think he grows a lot? Or
I think that in these first 4 episodes, he is still very much so that same Wim, the one that wants that adventure, the one that wants to become a Jedi. His head is a little bit in the clouds, whereas everybody else, all the other kids, are a little bit more grounded. Especially Neel. Neel's like he's like the goody 2 shoes, but also trying to like make sure that everybody doesn't go, that their heads don't swell too much. I guess like he tries to be a little bit of that voice of reason. And so, with him being Neel's best friend, with Neel being Wim's best friend, I think it's definitely an interesting offset. But those friendships happen all the time. There's always that one crazy friend that brings, a friend like Neel, like kind of takes them out of their bubble. But then you have somebody like Neel that kind of brings you back to Earth when you've been in orbit for too long, Yeah, I would say that Wim, at least in the first 4 episodes, doesn't really have any growth. Like, he's still like sold on Jod being a Jedi, where all the other kids are questioning him. Like, are you really a Jedi? Like they're like, he's like, Wim is almost like the kind of kid that adults think that kids are like. But the rest of the kids are really like how kids are. Kids aren't stupid. Once they pick up, when they kind of pick up a little bit of a radar, you might be able to trick them a little bit more than an adult, but they're still pretty smart. And like, this group of kids shows that they're pretty they're pretty smart.
And I think with Wim, one thing that I like that we're starting to see in these 4 episodes is that adventure isn't exactly what he had. Like, the adventure that they're having isn't particularly what he had in mind,
right,
as far as adventures go, because there's a lot more like danger at every turn. There's a lot more getting lost than there is finding new cool places.
Well, Bucko, I think you wanted to be a Jedi. And that's probably one of the most dangerous things that you could want to be, at least in that point in time.
Yep. So let's move over to Neel, as you brought Neel up earlier. I think Neel is probably most people's favorite character in the show, just because he is just such a lovable, like, adorable alien creature that is basically just, for all intents and purposes, he's entirely human in terms of his mental faculties and the way that he presents himself. But he's
an elephant.
He's an elephant. Yeah, he's it's almost like he's a Max Rebo type character, an Ortolan, but technically he's not, because Ortolans only have 2 limbs. He has 4. So he's his own species that we don't really know what his species is called at this point.
Yeah, they haven't given them a name. I think that they've given their species type a name, but not an actual name to the species, like an elephantine or something like that, or teen. So something like that. I mean, they are very much so like they're like sentient
elephant heads.
human elephants. That's exactly how they come off, like it's exactly like what they are. But I totally agree. Neel is very adorable, and like I said, he is kind of that one that tries to ground them, but like, you know, in an innocent kind of way. Whereas, you know, you have someone like Fern that's like a little bit more on the harder side, but she is a little bit of a ground too.
Yeah. One of my favorite things that they showed in this series is when they go into Neel's father's like garage. There's like an old a beer plaque, you know, that you would like normally see in like a bar, but it's of like his species, and it's like holding up like a couple beers, and it's just so kitschy, and I want that plaque so bad. I want to see what it looks like up close. It looks so funny. But yeah, I love those little details.
You just see a group of elephants just like raising a glass.
Yes, yeah. Well, it looks like Neel's father, but like he's holding like six cups of beer or something like that. That's what the pub thing looks like. But as far as Neel goes, he's probably the most naive of the bunch. He doesn't really know how the world works, let alone the universe that they're, you know, thrust into. He's the one most susceptible to, you know, I guess believing people. Like, maybe not the most susceptible in terms of like Jod and Whim. Whim is like very eager to believe that this guy's a Jedi. Like he's willing that into existence. But with Neel, you know, if Whim tells him that they're not going to get in trouble, then they're not going to get in trouble. Like he doesn't question it, you know, and maybe that's something that he should, because there's some clear peer pressure going on to do something that he clearly shouldn't, you know, and he doesn't have all that much forward thinking early on in the show. But I think by episode 4, he really comes into his own, you know, like he realizes that he realizes he's not just... he's not like a fighter like the others. He's not like he's not eager for adventure or anything like that. But he is eager for, you know, like to find peaceful resolutions to things. And I thought that was a really cool moment for him in episode 4 specifically.
Yeah,
I didn't wholly like at least the first half. I didn't like the first half of episode 4. But we'll talk about that more later. But yeah, I did like how Neel was portrayed in that episode.
Right.
Rich, how do you... Oh, go ahead. What were you saying?
I was going to say, I felt like episode 4 was like... It felt like it was an episode for him. That it was an episode... Right, it was like a growth moment for Neel.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, I could see that. Rich, how do you feel about Neel in these first 4 episodes?
It's funny because it's almost like Neel's character is so amazing that it actually... I don't know how to put this. Like, I wanted to like Whim more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
like
I know where you're going with that. Like,
the premise, I wanted to like Whim more. And the other part is, like, when I first saw Neel, I was like, oh, man, this is the guy everyone's going to love, right? Like, this is the guy. And I was like, I don't want to... So I kind of... I don't want to say kept my distance. But I didn't ascribe to him right away. I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, he's in the back, you know, whatever. He's cute, you know, like he's got the little brothers and all this stuff. And there was just so many things to like Neel that I was like, I don't want to do it right away. But I think episode 4, was it Hana?
Hana, yeah.
Hana, right? The interaction with Hana to me is just top-notch stuff. I mean, if you're like me and you were on the fence, I think that by the time you get to the end of episode 4, there's no debate. I mean, unless you really like the little rat creature that jumps out of Smee's eye, SM-33. But other than that, I mean, there's really... Neel is the best character. And it's weird because Whim is I would say Whim is supposed to be your protagonist almost, right? I mean,
That's how they introduced it to us. I wonder how... you know, the writers would feel about that, or if he's just the catalyst for the story to commence, you know? I feel like maybe that's his ultimate role, but yeah, you would think that Whim is the main character of the story, but as the show goes on, and the other characters are more fleshed out, he just kind of slots himself right there as, you know, just a quarter of the story, you know?
Right.
But
But it's weird because we don't know. We know Wim's dad.
Yeah.
We know Wim's mom is dead, right? We know KB's parents. We will eventually, like we get to know them more in that story. We know that, but then now you look at Neil's parents. We barely know anything about them. We know he's got a couple of siblings and they're very cute. And then even Fern, where's her dad? Like that's left out. But Wim, we get all the info on Wim. So it's really, I'm not sure if they, like you're saying, I wonder if it's just a way to introduce the story or if they were trying to make him kind of the lead and it just, Neil's just so,
maybe
so damn adorable.
Maybe the actual like writers started gravitating towards other storylines or characters, but that's an interesting thought. Anyway, I think Neel is a fantastic character. I think that he grows slowly at first over the first couple episodes, but by episode 4 he really comes into his own, and he understands his limits, which is a cool concept for a kid. And he realizes that his true strength is in his friends, and I think that's it's a powerful message for kids, and I like that about him.
Neel kind of reminds me of that kid's book, Babar.
Babar. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I haven't seen that in ages.
He's a king, right, or something, or he's a prince.
Yeah, but it's like a family of elephants, and it's like it follows like this elephant kid. So like when I saw him, I was thinking like, what does he remind me of? And like I looked it up, and I was like, that's it right there, Babar.
Babar. That's funny. All right, let's talk about Fern a little bit, because we have a very self-assured character at the offset. She's kind of like the bad girl. She's the one racing speeder bikes. She flips her school jacket inside out and has a whole bunch of patches on it, and she's always in detention. But she's the daughter of someone high ranking in this on this planet, basically. How do you feel, Anthony, about Fern and in these episodes? Because she actually goes through quite a bit of change. I feel
she does too. She's that take charge character. So like you said, we were thinking that Wim was going to be the main character, but she almost kind of becomes the main character a little bit in a sense. She takes charge of the ship. She becomes like the captain. She makes a lot of the calls, but I feel like her character is very much in line with that type of character who, that kid who has a high-ranking parent, a parent that's a CEO of a big company, or they're a politician, or there's somebody that's high up, and it's a kid that's like acting out, and she is very much so that type of kid that, she doesn't want to follow into her mother's steps. Like she doesn't really want that. She doesn't want to be the head of class. She wants to really be her own person. And so I think that's really what that take charge attitude is her trying to be her own person.
I like that. Rich, how do you feel about Fern, at least in the opening episodes?
I think there's a good amount of growth with Fern. I particularly like when she's, when she has those vulnerable moments. There definitely is this, and now this is where I'm worried about keeping it safe, keeping it secret. But Fern, she's definitely rebelling against wanting to be like her mom. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm going into spoiler territory if I simply say that her mom admits to similarly kind of behaving in that pattern, and we do know that they're kind of out of time. So you just wonder how we know that they take the tests. We don't know if there's any, what if her mom's a Nepo baby and she also is a Nepo baby? Like there's just a long string of these
of Nepo babies
of people in the family, right?
She does reek of rich girl syndrome, like rebelling against her mom. Yeah,
exactly. They rebel against their parent, right? And then when we do have the mom tell us that, oh yeah, I did kind of similar stuff. No biggie. It's like, oh, all right, yeah. Well, so then I wonder how long this kind of, like how much of the assessment is legitimate? How much of it is, or is it just for show to, there's more we're gonna have to kind of discover as we go into more episodes to, I think, further mine the roles that the kids and their parents play.
Yeah, that's something I don't think, going forward, actually, we get a lot of information about. Having finished the series, I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say. We don't get too much more information about like how they enter the roles that they enter. If I'm wrong about that, I guess we'll discuss that next week. But as far as Fern goes, I really like that she has this take charge mentality, and even like you said, Anthony, like she does, jump into the role as, the leader of their ship that they've commandeered. She becomes the captain, and several times throughout these 4 episodes, she, introduces herself as the captain, not only to SM-33, but to Jod, and also to the Troik people in the 4th episode.
Yeah.
So she has, very, very much taken on that role. But I think by the end of episode 4, there's a great moment where, this is a kid. This is a kid who's made a whole bunch of decisions and, they are in a lot of trouble and they could potentially lose their lives or, never make it back home. And she kind of has this moment of weakness in front of Whim where she steps aside and starts crying because, she's being made to figure out all these huge life choices on the spot while they're trying to get home. And I think that's a great, that break in her facade is really telling about like who she is, because she clearly wants to be in control. She wants to be in control of her own path and her own destiny, but she realizes at this point that maybe I can't do that, at least not at my current, maturity level or whatever, or with, the information that I have at hand. And I think that's a really cool moment. I think of all the characters, she has the most growth within these 4 episodes in terms of just that, like realizing that you've taken this too far, basically. But yeah, I like Fern. I like Fern a lot. Anthony, how far have you watched in the show?
So I've gotten up to... So I have episodes 7 and 8 that I have to watch.
Okay. All right. Yeah, both of those are excellent. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts next week. But KB is interesting because we know very little about her at the offset. We know that she has some sort of cybernetic implant that she needs to survive off of. But this also allows her to, like kind of like an augmented reality experience within life where she's able to kind of communicate to certain droids or to certain ships in ways that droids are often capable of doing, which is kind of a cool concept for a character.
Right. And she almost has like, I don't know, this like heightened sense or like this ability to scan, because when they first meet Jod, they're leaving that jail and she's able to pick up that there's something coming. When, Jod didn't pick up on it, it ended up being a droid, but she was able to pick up that something was coming. Somebody even made a remark like, oh, KB might be a Jedi too. Or she could use the Force.
Yeah, it's interesting because Jod may not have been able to feel the droid through the Force because it's not a living thing.
Right.
But if it was giving off some sort of like, radar bleeps or whatever, or, radio waves, and she was able to sense that through, her augmentations, then that kind of gives her like droid force powers, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But what I will say about KB is that most of her growth is in the second half of this season, which is kind of frustrating because I really want to talk about probably my favorite scene in the entire show is like, I have to talk about it next week. But yeah.
Something that you notice a little bit at least in the first half of the season, is KB is almost a little robotic in a sense. And I don't know if that is the actress or if that's what the character is supposed to be like, since she does have a little bit of that, she has that cybernetic implant. and so I don't know if that's who she is. I don't know if that's, yeah, like I said, if that's KB or if that's the actress, that's trying to kind of, because sometimes with kids, they're acting may not, they're trying to figure out the, acting for themselves, but it's I feel like it fits the character pretty well because KB, she has that visor, so she doesn't seem to react in the same way as the other kids that do.
Yeah, she's much more Lobot and much less Geordie LaForge.
She's very calculated in like the things that she does.
Yeah, exactly. It's I really like her character, and I'm excited to talk more about like her as a character and her growth next week. But yeah, I did notice that as well, that she on rewatch. What I will say is that on rewatch, there's a lot of moments where, knowing what you know of the character from later episodes, you see that she's very pensive about certain decisions that are thrust upon her.
Yeah.
She questions if she can do them. She questions, should I do that? Or, little things like that. And I think that that's a really interesting layup for her down the line.
Also, speaking of Lobot, you guys buried the lead here.
Oh, sorry.
What did you think of the Lobot pirate who is played by none other than Jaleel White, a.k.a. Steve Urkel? Did you guys catch him there?
I did notice that. Steve Urkel was a little bit before my time. I obviously was in my did I do that? Like that was in the vocabulary of the time, of the, like, pop culture and stuff. But I don't think I was ever like a big fan of the show, if I can remember correctly. But I did recognize him instantly, and I thought that it was cool seeing, familiar faces in new and interesting settings and prosthetics.
They're really trying to pull people out of the woodwork and just drop them in. This might sound sacrilegious, but it's one of the things that I actually kind of like about the Disney alliance here is that you'll just have Bill Burr randomly on a show or whatever, just kind of these or even bringing back the actor who played Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah,
he was in Acolyte, I believe.
Yeah, nothing sacrilegious about that.
No, Ahmed Best did really good. He was in one of the Mandalorian episodes. He's actually like one of like the better like he's like one of the Jedi Masters when it comes to dueling. Actually, he's like one of the strongest. He's like the best known like lightsaber duelist.
Right. Yeah. I forget the actual Jedi's name, but yeah, I know what you're talking
about. Bill Burr, like, for somebody who didn't really care for Star Wars, like, really killed that role too.
Yeah, if you watch interviews with Bill Burr after the fact, like, he had no idea what was going on.
He changed his tune. Like, yeah, he actually like became a fan,
which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. And then, I mean, in the same vein, you also had we had talked about Machete being the Rancor, the trainer.
Oh yeah, that's so ridiculous,
dude. They put him in everything. I like that he's. I honestly like that he's open-minded to be like just in anything. It's funny.
He's just that guy.
He is that guy.
Hey, at least they didn't cast him as a Mexican guy, right? Like he must have been like, oh, this is different.
They didn't have him as
these aren't the calls I normally get.
They didn't have him as some like bandito in one of the cantinas.
Yeah,
I mean, he's in one of the greatest movies of all time, Con Air. But I really do like these. Just trying to circle back, I do like these appearances. I don't know. Obviously, like my son will watch this and not care.
Right.
And when I tell my wife, because she's been watching it, she'll go, "What?" And then she'll go back to like really not caring. So I don't know who it's for. I mean, obviously, it's got to be for like you said that he was in your periphery, if I to say, but I watched it, like on Friday nights. I wanted to be home so I could watch, TGIF on ABC. So
Cool.
just these, obviously look, this is a kid. I think this is easily a kids show, and I think it's the most. I'm going to say something crazy, and I know we're only talking about 4 episodes, but if you had somebody who was like, I'm a little concerned about Star Wars, like, I don't know if I can jump into this thing. It's too big. It's a juggernaut. I'm overwhelmed. I think you could sit them down, have them watch this, and suck them into the world, and then start indoctrinating them with the ones they need to watch. But, I think this is such a beautiful, perfect way in, like, for a non-Star Wars fan to dip their toe into the water and just slowly understand a little bit about the universe.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I'm trying to think of like questions that will arise on a first viewing, like, well, wait, what is a Jedi supposed to be like? Like what, like you'll get stuff like that maybe, or so wait, they don't know that stars exist, or stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
So
all right, you know what?
You might have
Fair.
some like there's a certain mystery box thing that you're also given with this show in the Star Wars setting, that you as an audience member has more information about the general galaxy than these 4 kids.
That's funny. I actually wanted to call you after episode 2 and just be like, when is this? Like, one of the things that was really bothering me, I mean, definitely for the first episode, I'm like, when are we? When is this? I want to know exactly. Like, I wanted to see a timeline, quite honestly.
Okay.
Right, but like I wanted it immediately.
I know you did, yeah, because you need everything immediate. But we get more information on like the actual time and setting in the later episodes. But you can glean that by episode 3, I think the name Alderaan is thrown out, and one of the characters, the owl lady, basically says, "Oh, you missed the war," or something like that. And so this is post original trilogy.
Yeah.
And it's probably around the same time as The Mandalorian and stuff like that.
That's what they did such a good job, because I really, first episode, I'm like just kind of spinning, trying to figure out where I am. And then they slowly start to kind of, kind of roll it out and reveal it. So I thought they did a great job. I mean, I had a question and they kind of answered it like, almost right away. I think that you're right. There are gaps there where I take it for granted. I have, like, before I taught Revenge of the Sith, I had to create a PowerPoint, and I remember showing Jen being like, is this too much? Is this too little? Like, I don't know. I know so much that I want to share, but I also can't spend 3 days of class just lecturing on Star Wars. So I had to pick the very absolute, I do have students in front of me that I'll ask them, what do you know about Star Wars? And they'll say, I know nothing. Like, I don't, they don't know Darth Vader, like nothing.
Yeah.
So, there are some things to it, but I guess I struggle so much with, like, where do you start a person outside of the universe anyway? Mm-hmm. Do you, you kind of have to gauge their Vader level. Like, what do you know about Vader? If they don't know anything about his parent, about him being Luke's father, like, it changes everything, right? But if they know just that part, then you start them on one. Like, I don't. It's
it's tough.
Dakota, wouldn't you agree that Star Wars, in a sense, is almost like comic books? Like, there's always some point in comic books that kind of creates an entry point for new fans. And Star Wars does that quite often, actually. I think that they do that. There's a lot of people who are more into reading books, and there's entry points with the novels, there's entry points with the comics, there's entry points with the visual media, as far as TV shows and movies. Honestly, when you think about it, Star Wars is a lot more accessible than it was before Disney, because there was so much more. There's the amount of, like, legacy content was absurd, And
Mm-hmm.
I do wish that before Disney had acquired them, there was a little bit more control of what came in. I mean, we did get some interesting stories, but it made it confusing. But now that there's a little bit more of like, there's like the Lord of Lore, it's kind of fine tuned a little bit. Is it perfect all the time? No. But I do, honestly, I feel like you could hop right into Skeleton Crew and not have seen any Star Wars, because
That's fair.
it
Yeah, that's
feels,
fair.
I mean, it's very spacey, and we know that it's Star Wars, but if I didn't know that it was connected to Star Wars, then I would have been none the wiser,
Yeah, it would have just been four kids on an adventure in space. trying to get back
Exactly.
home. Yeah. So actually, I do take back a little bit what I said. Yeah, there's a certain mystery box element that rewards you as a Star Wars fan, but there's enough new information, and you can basically watch the universe unfold as it is like unfolding for these kids.
Yeah.
And that is it could be a pretty good launching point for people. And Anthony, you were talking about comics. I've spoken about it before. There's a great book by, I think his name is Douglas Wolk. He wrote a book called All of the Marvels.
Oh, yeah.
And
I remember you talking about that.
yeah, he literally read every single Marvel comic
Wild.
within the 616 universe, from the 60s all the way to the present day, and it's like what 27,000 issues of comics. And he basically said like the best place to start is wherever you want.
Yeah.
Because you're always going to be a little bit confused. There's always going to be something in this, what he calls the mountain of marvels, that you're never going to understand, or no one person truly grasps everything that happens or can happen within the Marvel universe. So you can just jump in anywhere. You'll be a little bit confused, embrace that, and then move on to the next issue.
Right, and I feel like that's.
You could do that with Star Wars.
I feel like that's almost with anything worth diving into. You're gonna be a little bit confused at first, but eventually you'll catch your stride, and you'll kind of like figure out things as time goes. And there's always like a little bit of a reset. It's not like a full-on reset, but it's like maybe a soft reset. I mean, I know that. Not to get too off topic for too long, but like, Marvel does that a lot. They do a lot of these like soft resets. There's always a new Avenger team. There's always a new Guardians of the Galaxy team. There's always, these teams always change. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, the same with Star Wars. Star Wars, they had a full-on reset. Well, not a full-on reset. They kept the core, but everything else was completely wiped out. Everything outside of the movies and like with
The Clone Wars.
right, and with some of the select lore, like they did bring back a little bit of elements of like the Old Republic, but mostly like it's really like a good time to get into. I mean, you don't have to rush and read everything, but like start in one area. And if you want to expand from there, go on ahead. Like we've talked about how the first season of The Mandalorian was perfect for like somebody that was new to Star Wars. This is another perfect show that's for someone new to Star Wars. You could, dude, this is absolutely amazing. If you're somebody that enjoys the Goonies, watch this show.
Mm-hmm.
I wholly recommend this show.
Awesome. Yeah. We haven't talked a lot about
Jod, yes.
The character that we meet by the end of episode 2. Actually, we meet him like early on in the first episode. He's originally the pirate captain Silvo.
The pirate captain Sith Lord Jod.
And yeah, he's mutinied by his crew after failing to provide a sizable bounty for a ship that they commandeered. And we don't find him until the kids are thrown into a prison on some pirate hub world, and he showcases, some Jedi powers. He overhears Wim's desire to, like, have a great Jedi adventure, and he's just like, this will be a great opportunity for me to, lure these kids, to their ship so that I can get out of here and, not die.
He's like, let me sucker these kids.
How do you guys feel about him in these first 4 episodes? Let's try not to, like, go too far into spoilers for the next 4 episodes, but, like, is he a good guy? Does he care about the kids at all? Does, do you feel that he sufficiently shows an interest in the kids' safety? Where do you land, Anthony? Because you haven't actually finished the show, where Rich and I have.
Right. Well, I mean, I've gotten enough so far, but I would say that at least within these first 4 episodes, he doesn't seem to be wholly like a bad person, but he definitely is kind of using them as a means to an end. He hears about Atten. Atten is this kind of legendary place of treasure, so he's trying to, like, okay, these kids seem to believe that they're from this place. Maybe they are, maybe they're not, but, like, let me follow this lead, right? So he doesn't seem to be like a bad person within these first 4 episodes, but he also doesn't seem to be 100% trustworthy, Like, you can tell that there's, like, an ace up his sleeve, that kind of thing.
Rich, how do you feel about Jod or Silvo?
Well, first, I'm very upset that I can't remember the name of the sabacc card that Lando literally keeps up his sleeve when he screws over Han in that game of sabacc.
Maybe they call it a Jod.
It's something. It's something with an S, and it's killing me. But anyway, so I've obviously watched the whole thing and then rewatched it again. But, like, just based on the first 4 episodes, Jod obviously does. Like, I think it's clear that he has something up his sleeve, but at the same time, I think he could. I don't know. I think there's a way where he could have manipulated the kids in a faster or meaner way and gotten to where, like, I think what seems to be like slow playing, I think, is him not being a complete cutthroat, right? Like, he could be a terrible complete cutthroat. I mean, we mentioned this guy earlier. I love him, right? My boy Jack Sparrow, right? Like, he is comically evil sometimes, right? Like, where he just, like, they make a big show of it in the Pirates movies, but, he'll kind of betray someone in a hilarious way, but he's still doing it. Here, I don't think Jod is as cutthroat as he could be with the kids.
At least not in these episodes. Yeah. Like,
He I don't think that he could be a lot like what does he make? He makes the food and then he eats it in front of them, and even I forgot about this. And I was like, what a jerk. And he's like, there's more in the pot,
I love that scene because Neel is like, I love the actor who played Neel because he's so, he does such a good job of, acting with his limbs and his body and, like, head tilts and everything. You could really see his train of thought even if he's not talking, and he's, like, rubbing his stomach.
Right. And like, his character is not one that can really show too many, like, facial expressions because he has like a whole trunk on his face,
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah, it really is. What I was thinking is that Jod is kind of like that classic adult that really doesn't have much experience with children, and so he's just like he's probably seen him, maybe been around them, but, like, not long term.
Yeah. Well, one thing that's interesting is that he doesn't use the kids as a shield or anything like that. He's not using the kids
to put them in danger. Yeah.
Yeah, he seems, at least up to this point, like he genuinely wants to get them back home. Obviously, he wants the treasure. He wants the prize at the end of the
right.
At the end of that
yellow brick road, yellow
right.
brick space.
Is it possible that, SM-33 is like what's holding him back from being totally cutthroat? Like, is that the case? Like, what do you feel about that, Anthony?
I don't think so. I think that
No.
I don't know. I think that those interactions are like pretty like comical, but I think that it's not too much in his like nature to be cutthroat in that kind of way. At least like with the kids, I like at this point, but he I mean they're like I mean he does kind of rummage through their stuff, like trying to like there is Atten is very obviously like a relic of the past, and Jod is kind of saying like, oh, they've got this old currency which apparently is worth more. It's like an old currency that has more worth than I guess what it was back then, and so it's essentially like a treasure. Like back in the day, like a gold doubloon was like worth whatever it was back then, right? But if you were to find like a whole trove of them right now, they're worth way more than they were back in the day. That's what their currency is, like the old Republic currency, like
Yeah.
that's what so like that's what I'm thinking, that he's saying that this, and he's saying that, oh, this must be part of that treasure, and
Mm-hmm.
and then we have that whole aspect of the, what was it that they were talking about, the great plan, or the great works, right? So at this point we don't know exactly what that is, right? And so
Yeah. So I want to actually jump in. I'll let you finish your thought. But what's interesting is that when you think of great works, the term great works within Star Wars, it's really only been applied a couple places, and mostly in the High Republic books. Like the Chancellor of the High Republic at the time, Lena So, for the Phase 1 books, she had a series of what they called great works. Chancellor So's great works. And one of those, one of her biggest great works was the creation of the Starlight Beacon.
yeah.
So I don't know if Atten is a extension of those great works.
Oh wow, yeah.
Set out by that.
So like how much do they not know? Like, like maybe they don't know much about, even like there's the High Republic period, but then there's like the whole, era of like, the era with the Republic with like, the Jedi, the Jedi Council, and then the fall of the Republic. Obviously they don't know that there was a whole war, but like how far back do they go? Where is their knowledge?
Yeah, that's an interesting train of thought, and I think they do give us some hints as to that in the final episodes. So we're definitely gonna touch on that more next week. But yeah, it's food for thought. I don't think they ever make any real strides to connect this to High Republic era outside of that term, the Great Works. But it's just something that I noticed.
Do you think there's any way that these pirates are an entry point for is it Nihil?
Nihil?
The Nihil, the pirate clans from the High Republic?
Dude, that was insane. We talked about that. We have a whole episode about the Light of the Jedi, and that was insane.
So the Nihil exist 200 years prior to the Phantom Menace, and we don't know if or how they truly get removed from the galaxy. So as far as these pirates go, I don't think they're connected in any particular way. I mean, it could be some descendant of Marchion Ro or whatever, but yeah, I don't think there's anything directly connecting them as of yet. The Nihil to the pirate clans that we see.
I mean, those pirate clans are probably like more. I would say I would closely relate them to the ones that you might see in Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
With your buddy, what was his name? the pirate that you would see often in Clone Wars. I forgot his name.
Oh gosh.
You know who I'm talking about, right?
I know exactly. He's a Weequay.
Yes, a Weequay.
Why do I remember his race's name before I remember his name?
He always had like that, dude, I can't even.
Hondo Ohnaka.
Yeah, Hondo. Yes. So I would say that those pirates are probably more kind of like out of that type of pirate than like the Nihil. The Nihil were, I wouldn't call them pirates. They were more like they were
marauders.
Yes,
like
they were marauders.
They were space Vikings.
Essentially, yeah, exactly. They had kind of clans, but they were a little bit united under Marchion Ro. But yeah, you're right. They were marauders. They were more like barbarians than pirates.
It just also made me, when Kim, the owl creature, when they. Oh wait, I think I'm jumping episodes. I'm going to stop myself right there, and I'm going to pinpoint it. Next week I will tell you.
Keep it safe.
Something that Kim does that also made me wonder if it had anything to do with Nigel.
Interesting. I'll keep an eye on
it. When I saw her, it made me laugh so much because I had this person in my D&D group who was an owling, and he was a scribe. But he was like a 10-year-old like owling scribe that like it was funny, like every like instance that we got into, he was like very like childlike, like like he'd be like, why do you look like that? Why are we doing this? so when I saw her, because like we all have like artwork for our characters, she so much so like reminded me of him that like I died laughing when I saw her. I said, not the owling.
Yeah. The creatures in this series are amazing.
Right? Like we get some like kind of like new ones that we don't really ever see.
Yeah, we get a lot of like unique concepts and like even just like the suburbs in a Star Wars setting is just such a fascinating visual that we've never explored before.
Never.
We've seen every biome in existence. We've never seen the suburbs.
Right? Like we've seen these vast cities. We've seen deserts. We've seen beautiful lakeside places and like plains. We've seen lava planets. We've seen forest moons. We've seen swamps, dude. We have seen everything, but yeah, it was an interesting touch. It was an interesting touch because yes, there would be a suburb in Star Wars. Why would there not be a suburb? And the fact that we got this and kind of like this Goonie-esque tale is like very cool. I really like what they're doing here. I feel like whenever Star Wars takes a risk, they do, I don't know, I feel like they do like very well. We've talked about the Acolyte. The Acolyte was a little bit of a risk. Their decisions were not always the best, but I feel like it got more flack than it deserved because people were already hating on it before it came out. I think that people were a little bit more, I guess, excited to see this because it did seem like it was a Goonies type movie or a type TV show, and a lot of people like the Goonies, and so the fact that you can kind of compare something that is beloved with a show like this, it's already gonna be seen, and it's already gonna be seen in good light. Like my dad absolutely loves this show. He also loves the Goonies, but he loves this show too, and I think it's because of it has that touch, that coming of age, adventurous kind of pirate type thing. He likes pirates. He likes Pirates of the Caribbean. Goonies has pirates in it, so it's very fun. These first 4 episodes. I guess, I mean, do we have anything else that we want to like discuss?
No, I think we stuck pretty much to non-spoilers for the majority of it. We didn't really talk about too much of the nitty-gritty details. The one thing I really want to bring out,
I don't mind talking spoilers because this is going to be
yeah. I think next week once we actually get, to discussing everything, it'll be a much easier discussion to, get into spoilers and all that.
Right, because a lot that happens now is kind of like a setup for later on.
The one thing that I really disliked about episode 4 specifically was the fake Atatin planet, or like
Akin.
At Akin. Yeah, I thought the society didn't really make any sense, and it really bothered me because it was like, let's make a really bad Doctor Who episode, but only half of the episode, and then the rest of it is going to be, your normally scheduled skeleton crew programming. I don't dislike Doctor Who, and I actually love Doctor Who in some
Up to
forms,
up
but
to a certain point.
It doesn't work in all settings, and I didn't feel like that whole militaristic world worked for this series, and ultimately I don't think it really adds to the show all that much.
I don't think that it I don't think that it bothered me as much, because I mean, if there was a world that was like at Aten, there was definitely going to be more. And not every single one of those planets were going to be successes, I guess, in a way that Aten would be. And in some instances, some of those civilizations would devolve into whatever it was. And I think that it was a little bit of an interesting touch that the children were kind of like the leader, or seen as like the leaders. It was almost like a nod to like believing in children, like, and understanding that they're smarter than like a lot of people give them credit to be, and sometimes they do have good ideas. I mean, I understand like where I guess some of your gripes are where they come from, and I guess that they could have maybe tightened up that storyline a little bit. But so, I do believe that there being like that faux at Aten world, or not a fake one, it just would have been one of those worlds, like, if there was a world, it seemed like a perfect society. And so the fact that there would have been only one wouldn't have made sense. There would have been multiple. And the fact that not every single one of those, like I said, like succeeded or continued to be that perfect society, I believe that, I mean, I don't have any issues with that. I just think that maybe it was a little sloppy.
So interestingly that it's interesting that you brought that up, because in episode 3, when what's that owl lady's name? Kim, yeah, she says that Aten is one of these like unique, the 9 unique planets that for whatever reason, it was Aten was the one that wasn't destroyed. So the other ones were destroyed. So
the Jewels of the Republic, I think they're called, right?
That's what. Yes, the Jewels of the Republic. And for whatever reason, at Aken, the planet that we visit is one of those destroyed worlds. We don't know if it was like internally destroyed by the society just crumbled,
right,
or if it was purposely destroyed and these are the remnants of this society. But it's a cool concept. So I don't dislike the concept. I just didn't like the execution.
Yeah, and I feel that.
Did you guys have anything else to say about these first 4 episodes before we close out?
Yeah, any last remarks?
For me, it's length. I mean, I know I've also finished, but there was, maybe it's not in the first 4 episodes, but there's one episode that is, I want to say 25 minutes long.
Yeah.
And
that's a Disney Plus thing. I don't know why they can't get their head around. I mean, I do understand to a degree, like only put on screen what you need to make a tight script, but you have to realize after all of these years of doing these limited run series of 6-8 episodes, that by limiting the amount of actual content that we're receiving on a weekly basis, we're not receiving an equal share every week. We're getting diminishing returns some weeks, some weeks not. versus, you know, you go to HBO and you watch House of the Dragon and it's an hour and a half episode every single week for 10 weeks. It's, you know, like it's just on a different level. And yeah, no, that is a gripe that I have, and it's something that I think most people have issues with.
I think that if you're going to have long episodes, like, they need to be like long quality episodes, you know?
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, if you're just going to put on, you know, 30 minutes of solid content and then an hour of nonsense, then I'd rather just have like 30 minutes of quality content, you know, and decent episodes. Naruto with all their dang filler episodes.
I can't. Oh, please don't even.
I would say, like, you know, I said with that, I was like, bro, like, just skip a week. I don't want this filler.
Yeah, you'll catch the actual important stuff on the what happened last week. But
I guess that's why we have like shorter seasons like this, to kind of limit the fillers. You know, like you can't really have fillers and Skeleton Crew when it's only 8 episodes. You know.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so I would say that is a genuine issue that I have with the show, but it didn't bother me as much as certain other shows. Like, I know it bothered me more in Acolyte, where like there were some episodes where it felt like nothing happened, you know. Yeah. But you know, I feel like all together something important happens in each episode of this show, and I think that's really cool. Anthony, any final words for I was gonna say the Acolyte, Skeleton Crew?
I mean, we're just covering the first 4 episodes, and I still cannot recommend the show any more than I am now. I mean, if you enjoy Star Wars and want to see like a fun space adventure, come to this. If you're not too sure about Star Wars, but you like shows like The Goonies or anything involving pirates, come to the show. You know, it's fun. It's a fun show. It's really fun. There's this mystery to it that kind of quenches this, like, you know, there's a lot of people who are into like mystery stories that this has to it, you know? And I really enjoy it. And I'm really excited to talk more, you know, about the rest of the show next week, and you know, actually watching the last episode.
yeah I'm excited to hear your thoughts.
I know I'm gonna hate it.
A lot happens in the last couple episodes, so Rich, you have any final thoughts?
You know, we'll talk about it next week, but you know, Palpatine returning, I don't know how that somehow he did that.
Keep it secret, keep it safe.
It's just so crazy. I mean, and then the zombie Han, I can't wait till we can finally talk about. You'll see zombie Han Solo. Oh man, it's crazy.
Grogu returns. You know.
Oh man,
lightsaber and all.
Lightsaber and all.
We're just messing with you, Anthony.
Lightsaber and all. He's wearing a Mando helmet
and chainmail.
Speaks backwards Spanish.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to us here for our 107th episode of Project Geekology. Next week we are covering the second half of Skeleton Crew, the last 4 episodes ending with the I guess a series finale, because I think it's billed as a limited series. So we'll be talking much more about I guess the spoilery side of Skeleton Crew next week for episode 108. But just as a heads up for you guys, after we do Skeleton Crew, we're going to be jumping into a movie that we said that we were going to be covering months ago.
Dude, like a year ago.
Probably about a year ago.
I mean, because it came out in December 2023.
There you go. Yeah, so we're going to be finally covering Miyazaki's latest movie, The Boy and the Heron.
Yeah. We've covered a couple of Miyazaki's already. You know, we have Princess Mononoke and what was the other one? I forgot that.
Did we do Nausicaa?
No. It was Castle in the Sky.
Castle in the Sky.
Yes, Castle in the Sky.
Yeah. That was an interesting one. Yeah. Okay. So this will be a much more interesting show because I don't think Rich is at all introduced to the world of Miyazaki, and this is definitely one of Miyazaki's least accessible movies. It's a much more artsy film than his usual fare.
It's a fever dream.
It is a fever dream. It's like going into your first David Lynch film, and
going into Dune.
Yeah. Oh, not that David Lynch film. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening to us here. If you want to check out any of our socials, be sure to visit the show notes down below, where you can get links to any of our links. And yeah, we will see you next week.
Goodbye, y'all.
Can't say I remember no at.
The Wolverine.